Today we're back with another lobster recipe, and this one's super easy because we're using all the things that you have in your fridge. Today we're going to make a lobster and corn chowder. I love this soup. This is a staple in my house. Not always with lobster, but these are things that we always have in our fridge. I always have corn in my freezer. I always have leeks. I often have bacon, potatoes. These are things that we have. But the star of this show and what makes it so special is the lobster. Today I'm actually using frozen lobster. I usually keep a bag or two of this in my freezer because you know what? It's not always lobster season where we are right now. Don't think that because it's frozen, it's not as good. I find that this beautiful frozen lobster that I get is so decadent and so sweet, and you're gonna see just how easy and delicious using this beautiful Canadian lobster is. First, I just want to talk about the lobster. I'm using frozen lobster, and like I said, I often keep like a pound or two of frozen lobster meat in my freezer. This is actually knuckle and claw, so the claws and the knuckles, which is my favorite. And I think it's actually sometimes better than fresh. Where it's processed, they do such a good job. It's already cooked. They pack it often with like a little bit of brine, which I always save, whether I'm making a soup or a risotto, to add that beautiful lobster flavor. And often, let's face it, we can't get fresh lobster where we are. So for me, having frozen lobster that's already cooked in my freezer, if I'm using it the next day, I'll just put it in a bowl in my fridge. And if I need it right away, I put it in my sink with cold water running on top. Either way, it's a win-win situation. I'm gonna put a little bit of butter here in my pot and I'm gonna get it melting. And once that starts to melt, I'm gonna add my bacon, and I want that to like render down to give some of that beautiful smoky flavor to our soup. I'm going to just smash and cut up a few cloves of garlic. Throw in there as well. And this is a soup that I actually make at home fairly regularly. In the summer, what I'll do is when corn is in season, I'll buy a bunch and I'll take it off of the cob and then freeze it in bags. So that way, in the middle of the winter when it's cold and snowy, you feel like you're basically having a bowl of summer sunshine. I'm gonna throw my garlic in there with my butter, and I'm gonna throw in some of this beautiful smoked bacon in with my bacon, not too much because I don't wanna overpower the flavor of the lobster with our bacon. And you just want to let this saute for about 5 minutes, just so that you're starting to like render all that beautiful flavor out of the bacon. We don't want it to get crispy, so just keep an eye on it. I'm going to throw in some of my beautiful leeks. I love leeks. They are sort of the softer, kinder version of the onion. And while this is cooking, I'm going to add some salt because I like to always sort of build the flavors and season as we go along. A little bit of salt in here. And then what I'm also gonna add is my secret to this soup. I'm gonna add a little bit of toasted fennel seed. And the reason why I'm adding toasted fennel seed is because we're also gonna be adding tarragon. It gives that beautiful sort of like anise fennel depth to this soup. I'm just gonna mash it up in my mortar and pestle. Now you don't have to worry about like turning it to like a pure dust because I kind of like it sometimes when you're having a spoonful of the soup and you get a little sort of bite of the fennel seed. Throw that right in there. Give it a stir. At this point, all I really want to do is soften my leeks because it is going to be cooking for a while. So I'm going to deglaze with a little bit of white wine. I'm going to save the rest for me. And of course, you always want to cook the wine out. If not, you're going to get that sort of bitter, liquory flavor, as I like to say. Everything has been sauteing. Now I'm going to add my potatoes. And a little secret when I make this chowder, or any chowder for that matter, I like to use the water that my potatoes have been soaking in because it actually gives a little bit of the starchiness and helps thicken it. Now I'm going to add my corn. Now this is one of the heartiest, most delicious soups. And if you wanted to make it just a little bit like extra special, if you're having guests over, as opposed to serving it to your children like I'm doing, you could almost puree half of it so that it makes it more of like a smoother texture. I'm gonna add some of that water that I was talking about. And then my special trick is with the frozen lobster, I like to keep the brine that's in the bag or that would be in a can. Just has like a really beautiful sort of like lobstery, ocean water kind of flavor to it. Right in. heavy cream. And if you didn't want to use heavy cream, you could use whole milk. I'm going to season it with a little bit more salt because, again, I like to season as we go along. And I'm going to put a pinch of our tarragon. I'm not going to put all of it in. I'm going to put about half of it in because I want to put some in when I add the lobster towards the very end so that I don't lose that beautiful brightness of that. All you want to do now is bring this up to a boil and then let it simmer for about 15-20 minutes until those potatoes are nice and soft. Soup has been simmering, it smells delicious in here, and now is the time to add the star of the show, the beautiful, sweet Canadian lobster. I sometimes would rather just put these beautiful, like look at these claws, these are insane. I don't know how big these lobsters were, but sometimes I like to, instead of just chopping them up, I will actually just tear them up in here. And I like to keep them in like fairly large pieces because we all want to see those beautiful pieces of lobster in our bowls at the end of the day. I like to put a little bit of it in and then sometimes just save a little bit for garnish on top. Now the reason I didn't put my lobster in at the very beginning is because this has already been cooked, and if I put it in at the very beginning it would start to break down, and we don't really want that. We want to have those nice big chunks. And all we want to do at this point is just cook it through so that the lobster heats up. Stir it in there. I smell the beautiful bacon, I smell the fennel and tarragon in here. Oh, this is basically just a bowl of deliciousness. The lobster is heated through. I'm going to add that tarragon that I had chopped up. You want just a little bit at the very end. And then of course, we all know how much I love lemon zest. It couldn't be seafood without some sort of citrus. Just the zest of one lemon, which always, I say, brightens up a dish. And of course, a little bit of seasoning at the very end. And we are basically ready to go. Super simple, super delicious. You will wow anybody by making this decadent Canadian lobster chowder.